It's good to be here. Thank you again for inviting me to give this talk. I'll be talking about various problems in artificial intelligence and machine learning for computational advertising today. We'll give a bit of an overview of what computational advertising is and where different learning algorithms fall into this. So first of all, what is advertising? Undoubtedly, some of you have seen advertising in the past, and maybe you like it, maybe you don't, but a lot of work goes into it, and we'll try to open up the hood and try to understand what's going on. Digital advertising, or any form of advertising, really focuses on these four sort of problems: giving the right options, like information or opportunity to get someone to do something, to the right person, hopefully you, the right context when you're interested or in the market for that particular option, and at the right time. Getting all of these things right would be ideal for advertising, and that's what advertising is trying to do. Today in digital advertising, there are a lot of different terms that you may have heard about. Probably the best known are real-time bidding or ad exchanges. You may have heard that there are auctions going on in advertising, targeting, privacy, and such things. And they're all there, and they're all really important. We're going to understand a few of them in our discussion today. So as a machine learning problem, we can view advertising as solving an optimization problem. So as shown here, the optimization problem is fairly simple to write. We want to find the ad, which you denote by A, which from the set of all possible ads that we can show to a person maximizes some sort of a value, which we're denoting by B here. And that's it. Advertising does this 100 billion times a day in less than 100 milliseconds. So this is a very frequently solved optimization problem. And what's interesting about it is, despite the fact it's relatively simple to write down, a lot of different things go into it. These are the different types of learning algorithms and data systems, the disciplines that go into advertising. We're going to talk about some of them. In time series forecasting, we're interested in understanding not just what happened in the past, but also what's likely to come in the future. How much ad traffic or user interest will there be in a particular product? That helps us calculate that value that we talked about, and also helps us with advertisers to tell them, hey, your ad is going to be very valuable in the future because a lot of people are next month going to look at our content because it's Christmas time. Classification algorithms also help determine the valuation at an instantaneous moment. So to know how likely a person is to purchase a product or to respond to an advertisement very much determines the value that the advertiser and platform will take. Then there are regression problems in here to understand, well, how valuable is a particular ad? Is it really what the advertiser states as their stated value, or is it something else? Next, mechanism design. There are multiple parties in advertising. There's the advertiser, there's you, the user, and there's also the platform. And each of them has a slightly different interpretation of what success means in advertising. As a user, you might prefer not to have so many ads. As an advertiser, you might prefer not to spend so much on ads, but as a platform or a publisher, you want there to be many more ads. So each of them has a different value. How do we arbitrate between these values? And how do we decide the best allocation for everybody? It is a problem of mechanism design. Once advertisers work within their business, they're thinking about, well, how much money can I spend? How do I allocate my advertising budgets across different campaigns or marketing initiatives? And finally, we spend a lot of time doing convex optimization problems here. and also non-convex optimization problems, but the convex ones are easier most of the time. So if we then kind of focus in on the purpose of advertising, we will see that there is some important components. One is that there is a call to action, which is somebody's asking you, the receiver of the ad, to do something. It could be buy a product, it could be look at content, it could just be, you know, watch this video. But there's generally an action that's requested. And that is a paid action, which means that the platform on which you're viewing is not the only stakeholder in getting you to complete the action. So the originator of this message has an agenda. They're willing to pay the platform to get you to complete the action. Yeah, that doesn't have to sound nefarious. It kind of does sound nefarious. But digital advertising, which we're going to focus on, is a very large industry. It's continuing to grow, even during recent times when some digital ad spend went down. They're still growing in various other parts of the business. And you might wonder, well, how is it that advertising is such a big business and growing, and people find ads a little bit annoying? Why do people keep doing it? There's a simple answer: it works. And it works in ways that are not always obvious, because people, as they seek to buy things and are looking for different content, they don't really know exactly what it is that they want all the time. You might think you do, but oftentimes your decision to buy can be influenced by content you see or videos you've watched. How many of you have watched a video about a particular hobby like woodworking, and all of a sudden you find yourself wanting to buy a saw? I mean, that's sort of advertising, and it sort of isn't. But the advertising does have a part to play. Movies, in particular, are marketed. There's no good way to find out about movies. People don't just walk in front of the movie theater every day. So you hear about them. Maybe you hear about it from your friend. How do they hear about it? Cars, phones, the big things that people buy in life are often acquired either directly or indirectly through advertising. From the perspective of statistics or mathematics, we can see that advertising lowers the cost of discovering a product or service, right? You could go and look at every single phone that exists in the world and make a clear determination, or someone could do that for you and you can read the result. And you could read like technical journals about all these different phones and make your decision. Or you could see an ad that gives you sort of a story that's easy to understand and it convinces you. And then that's a great way for you to find out about something. So that lowering of the cost of discovering the product, that's sort of the key motivation of advertising from the perspective of a user or a consumer. Now, there are two general classes of advertising. There is the offline case, which up until recently was the only way to do advertising, in which somebody puts up a sign or an indication somewhere. We call that an impression. You see this billboard, and it's a little bit of an old image, but you'll probably see lots of signs like this. And at some point in the future, people buy things. They convert from a passive observer to a customer. We call that a conversion process. And most of the time, it's a purchase, but sometimes it's something else. Now, the challenge with offline advertising is that there is no direct relationship between these two things. How do we know that buying the phone wasn't influenced by the sign? You put up the sign, people buy phones. How do you know that the sign made them buy the phone? Well, it's very difficult to do, and it's not obvious. And so people spent a lot of time on building models to tease that effect apart. Now, in digital advertising, we don't have as much of a problem about this. We get instant feedback. We can track from the time the person sees the ad to the time that they purchase. This is really helpful for advertisers. It gives them great information, and it also subsidizes most of the free content that we see. And it allows us to be highly personalized. We can take into account the desires or the interest of the consumer, mostly for their benefit, to show them ads that make sense to them, and therefore reducing the cost to advertisers. So the conversion funnel, as it's called in digital advertising, introduces a lot of extra events that we can measure and track between the impression and the purchase. So you'll see an ad, you might click on the ad, you'll go to what's called the landing page, which is the place that you go after you click on the ad. It's the advertiser's opportunity to really sort of pitch you their particular product or service. Then you might go to a purchase, you might fill out a form, you might do something else, you convert. And all these different arrows that you see here are trackable thanks to the benefits of digital advertising. And there's cookies, there's serverless cookies, there's lots of ways for people to track these things in as privacy preserving manner as possible, so to identify the impression which led to the purchase and then assign credit backwards. And that it was an unprecedented tool in the history of advertising that made digital advertising so attractive. Now, there are many different forms that advertising takes that we can see. The first is sponsored search. It's probably the most that people are experiencing today, which is you type in a search and into your favorite search engine and ads appear. And these ads usually have something to do with the query, but sometimes they don't. But when you click on them, they go to the advertiser's page. That's called the landing page. And if that works out for you, you'll convert. The purpose of sponsored search ads is to drive you towards that conversion. So there is an explicit intent. You type in a query, and that kind of focuses the advertiser on trying to drive you towards the conversion. And the conversion then depends on the advertiser. Some want you to just sign up for a credit card. Some want you to buy a specific thing. Another very common advertising form is display advertising. So these are pictures typically or videos that you see on various forums, right? You're not searching for something specifically and to see the ad. You might watch a video and an ad appears. You might go to a website and see a banner ad. In any of these cases, the intent is not obvious. You're watching a video about something or you're looking for an article. You're not interested in buying something. So then the ad has to really draw your attention, hopefully in a positive way, and assume or infer that you might be interested for a particular product or service. It's the same process that exists in sponsored search, but it's different because we lack that detailed intent. And other recent forms of e-commerce advertising, I think most notable is the Amazon sponsored products, in which you're already very close to buying something, but we might want you to buy something slightly different. So you search for, say, a teddy bear, and maybe there's like 100 million teddy bears on Amazon or eBay, and you want to find, a good one. You could read the reviews, you could spend a lot of time, you could look for hints, like great price or bestseller, or you see the ad, which is right at the top, and it kind of gives you some strong confidence. You click on it and you buy. There's a direct intent. It results in a direct purchase and fairly straightforward process. So the purchase funnel is a little bit different in emphasis, but it's generally the same pattern. So to understand a bit more about how all of these things fit together, let's take a look at the different optimization problems that each of our components have, starting with the user. The user has love to give and money to spend. Right? They love their certain content and they want to spend their money on things that will bring value to their lives. A very romantic view of this user casting itself out into the vast internet. The advertiser has things that they think that people would like to buy. It's only one problem. They're sitting off someplace in the internet, and they cannot find their happy customers. They're not coming to their site. They're not going to their store. They need to find them somehow and show them that their products are really very nice. And then we have the publisher. The publisher is where the content is. The publisher is where the customers are. The users are watching their videos, they're playing games, they're reading content, they're doing searches, they're shopping. So the publisher has the customers, but most of the time, the publisher is not charging the customer to participate in their content. It's giving it away for free. So the user is providing their love to the publisher. They love the content because they're going to keep on watching it. Otherwise, they wouldn't be watching it. They don't have to pay for it. They're just giving their love for the content. So how do we connect these two sides? There is something called the demand side platform. The demand side platform, the demand side platform is connecting our advertisers to our publishers. The advertisers pay lots of money to these demand side platforms to find users who are interested to them. And they kind of give a specification. It's called an ad campaign that says, here's the kind of customer that I think would make sense for my product. Here's what I'd like to show them, and here's how much I'd like to pay in order for that to happen. The demand side platform then has the job of finding the customers. How do they do this? They interact with exchanges. There are probably less than 100 ad exchanges in the world, maybe 1,000 DSPs and millions of advertisers. So the exchanges take the job of connecting to each of millions of different publishers. And by pooling the connection information, they form a vast pool of possible users as they're interacting with content. And they sell this to the advertisers. So the ad exchanges allow the DSPs to buy impression opportunities to say, okay, here's a stop on this page. This user is visiting this particular site, and the user has these various interests. Would you be willing to put your ad here? And so this is how the connection works. But still, how does the publisher make money? Did they just put money into the publisher? No. The user brings the money back to the advertiser. So this makes us a virtuous cycle. Because the publisher is getting money from the ad exchanges, advertisers are only putting their money into this system when there's a return on investment. So if the user or the customer is buying the product from the advertiser, then the advertiser will put more money to bring more customers to buy more things. And as the customers continue to love the content, they're going to keep on interacting with it and find products that they love. And so it's a nice, happy, virtuous cycle. So the publisher then is incentivized to provide strong, enriching content to our users, and by process getting some money in exchange. So how do all of these different systems work? There's a lot of data processing that is involved with this. You can see that as part of an ad exchange or a DSP, you'd have to interact with millions of publishers and potentially billions of users. How does it all work? Well, it all comes together in this real-time serving component. That is the DSP's interaction with the exchange, and a very similar process happens with the exchange in order to interact with the publisher. And now that real-time server needs several pieces of information. It in particular needs a predictive model, which is obtained somehow, and it needs to be able to look up a bunch of data in real time, data about the user, about the publisher, about the state of the world at any particular moment. These two pieces of information get read by the real-time server at runtime. It then publishes interactions. Users interact with ads, they interact with content. Each one of these interactions generates a log event, which could be terabytes of data per day into a log system. And then a model training process transformed those logs and signals into both feature lookups that go back to the real-time service and also updated models, which get put back into the real-time system. And this is the basic feedback loop for our machine learning and advertising systems. So how do all of these things start to work together? The publisher then has a learning problem, which is to lay out the specific content on the page and allocate the ads that make sense to the different advertiser. They decide when and where and how to allocate an ad. There are various problems that they solve. One of them is layout optimization, which sort of decides, well, should I put 5 ads at the top or 4? Should I put a component over here or not? Each of them makes a different value to the advertisers and drives continued love and support from the customers. And it needs to balance those two things. In yield optimization, we're interested in just the answer, okay, this is the space you have for ads. How many ads should you show at a particular moment in time? And next is forecasting. So advertisers want to buy specific ads at points in time, and they want to know how much it's going to cost. So the ad programs, or publishers often, provide forecasts. How many users are going to be on the site? What will those users be wanting? These time series models affect strongly the prices and the minimum value that's required to buy ads on the site, so that they don't sell content at a very low price and risk reducing the engagement and love from the users. On the allocation side, most publishers integrate with multiple different ad exchanges. And the most common approach is called a waterfall, where we talk to a first exchange for, say, high value but low quantity of ads. And these would get first preference and then goes on to the next one and the next one. This isn't as efficient as running an auction, for example, but it has the benefit of providing strong reducing business risk, so that the first exchange can specify that it works on high quality different ads, and the publishers can plan around that. So the publisher then has this nice virtuous cycle, right? It has, right? It gets money for users through advertising. It channels that money back into building its site better and also driving traffic, then perhaps even running ads on its own. And as long as the rate at which it makes money for users is greater than the rate at which it spends it, it becomes a profitable business. The advertiser then has to invest in its users, and it hopes for a return on investment. So ideally, it expects more money for the products than it spends on advertising. So the advertisers can acquire traffic to their content or to their products in a variety of ways. They spend money. They can either pay people to use their products, which is very expensive and inefficient, or they can give maybe some free money to loyal customers, or they can provide ads, which will incentivize people to buy. So the key question that an advertiser has to answer is, what is their marketing hypothesis? Who are your customer? How do you find them? And what do you want them to do? And the customer development process is where advertisers kind of think through what makes their product make sense and how can they tailor it to their specific customers. And there's lots of ways you can define who are your customers and where do you find them. And those are the different types of advertising that you might choose to use. As a business grows, you get better and better at refining your marketing hypothesis. You'll see a lot of startups giving around free t-shirts and talking a lot about their app, but you see very large brands focusing on brand advertising because they have a very different view on where their customers are and how much it takes to get them. The demand side platforms then is where all of these things get put together. The ad exchange is where the traffic comes in. There is a flow called bidding, where the advertisers need to show ads to customers is transformed into a value on a per impression basis. And then as those impressions get shown to buyers or users, the users click on the ads and it feeds this whole process. So the DSP sort of is intercepting this flow, and that's where it can drive the value by being smart to figure out where good value from customers is and good value to advertisers comes from. The key component that a DSP offers to advertisers is targeting. It learns where the users are likely to be and how you are to find them. And we can think of targeting as a prediction problem. Find the ads which have highly likely to find users that are of interest, and try not to spend so much money by limiting your reach to users that make the most sense for your ad product. Inside the bidding system, to formulate that value is a response prediction problem. We want to predict whether someone will respond to an ad given all sorts of different features that were available from logs or other data set that we have. Most of research in machine learning and advertising is focused on solving this particular problem of response prediction. Once you have a response prediction model, you put that into a bidding process by thinking of the expected value. That is, all the different outcomes in that conversion funnel. Each of them has a value to the advertiser and possibly other entities. And we need to calculate the expectation. How likely is it that all those different things happen together to formulate the final valuation? That's how you put together all the different components in the advertising process. You have the targeting that forms the set of possible ads. You have the bids and response prediction and value from advertisers that forms the bid, and the ad selection, which comes through the DSPs and the exchanges to drive the ads to the customers of interest. And how does this scale? Well, we have hundreds of billions of ad auctions per day. That is more than all stock transactions on all exchanges every day. And this happens within 100 milliseconds from the time the user looks at the content to the time that they see an ad. At general traffic time, we're processing 400,000 requests per second in a typical ad exchange. That's more than all the credit card transactions in the whole world. And there's about 100 terabytes of data that's being generated on a daily basis just to power these models. And there are about 100 different players and different companies that may participate in a single request through remote calls. So it's a very challenging computational and data problem as well. And this is a challenge for our big data and machine learning because of the rate of click. Very few people click on ads. So 0.1% of click for impressions is the average. After a click, there's about a 1% chance that people will buy something. So if you distill that, you have a big data problem in terms of handling all this data, but you also have a small data problem, which is you have very few positive examples. So how do you get all those different things to work within the latency? And there's still quite a few unsolved problems in advertising today. How do we balance all these different requests? How do we do targeting and protect privacy? And how do we predict whether people are going to respond and account for that value so that people get higher quality ads? And that's it. That's how we put it all together, all the different components within the system. And with that, I'm going to end my talk.